Hey guys, welcome to another Homelab Series video today. In today's video, we'll be playing around with Kviklet, I think is how you say it. I could be completely wrong on this one though. But it is essentially a self-hosted application that you can set up to allow your engineers or developers or whoever access to your database, whether it's a one-time query or like a session. And you can do it by essentially doing kind of like a merge request type situation or pull request where it's, hey, I have all this, I want to do this, do you approve? If so, it runs. If not, then, it goes back and requests more information or whatnot. So it's kind of neat. Especially if you're trying to do it in like a more production environment where you have a little bit of a leaner DBA team that you have people requesting, hey, can I see what this data in production is so that I can go fix it, right? So this is an easy way to be like, okay, I think I got everything squared away. Here's my select statement, and I just need the output. So that's what we'll be showing you here today. This application only supports Postgres and MySQL right now, but based off of how it looks pretty neat. So I could see them supporting more databases in the future. So let's get started, guys. Alright, so the first thing that we'll do here is update our DNS for our new virtual machine that we will be running this off of. So we will go through our GitLab and update our hosted zone here. And it's Kviklet, I think is how you say it. I feel like some of these applications need need more like English-like names because I clearly can't say it if I don't know how to say it, but it's okay. The important part is you can know how to spell it. So we're gonna update our DNS here. So add Kviklet to our DNS, and then we'll also add it to our Ansible playbooks. This will allow us to run our Ansible playbooks to create the virtual machine and do various tasks, such as like installing Docker and whatnot for this. So Kviklet, so we'll add it as an item that we can target. Here we go. And that's pretty much all we need to do on our GitLab side for the prereqs. If you're interested in how all this kind of works on the back end and all these playbooks that we can utilize for this build, feel free to watch my automation playlist. It should include pretty much kind of a lot more detailed depth on what it all does on the back end. So in this case, what we'll do is we will create this virtual machine. Kviklet and 107, I believe. Let's double check that. I wasn't paying attention enough, clearly. So we'll look at the hosted zone. Yeah, 107. We are good with 107. Kviklet. And we will look at the proxy address. So if we look it up in GitHub, we can see it is essentially, pretty simple. Nothing too much in here. It kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like. So you got like your request here. You can get it approved, and it will run. So the setup is pretty quick. So we'll just be using their Docker install, whatnot. So actually, we will look at their Docker config here real quick. Docker compose config. And we might not need everything in here, honestly. So it sets up a Postgres database in here. It looks like, it looks like if you wanted to test, you can include a MySQL. So this is probably one for testing. This is the actual Postgres that is being used for the Kviklet process. So this is using 80. I'm going to change this to 8080 when I use it because it will interfere more with my Nginx config listening on 80. And then it looks like LDAP if you want to set up LDAP, but we'll disable that. This looks interesting because it has 80 and 80 over here, so one of these won't actually work in this config by default, so that's something to be aware of. If you leave both these on 80, one of these won't work. It won't work because the address will already be mine. So that's something to keep in consideration, but I'm going to change one of them anyway. So localhost 8080, and we will install and set up. So obviously with the Docker Compose file, you need Docker and Docker Compose installed. So I have that as one of my tasks over here. And we want TLS, so we'll create our certificate with our local CA server and set up Nginx. And that's what the port for proxying was for. So once this finishes, we'll continue on and configure the machine. So alright, so now that I've finished, what we can do now is SSH to the machine, kviklet.dragon.local. Yes. Type in the password. And now we can see that we're logged in. You can see Docker is installed. So what we'll do here is actually go and we'll actually clone the repo, because that's essentially what I believe the directions are. You don't necessarily need to clone the repo because all you need is just these two files, but I'm just going to clone it for the fun of it. So you can go up here, hit copy. What we need to actually do first is install Git, because if you don't install it, you can't clone it. And it should take a few seconds, and we're good. So now you can type git clone and then the URL, and then it will clone down. So now you can see there is a directory called Kviklet. Got a CD to that, and then there is a Docker Compose file. So we'll actually leave this here. So we'll just connect to this Postgres service here for our test. But obviously, if you were doing this in a real production environment, you wouldn't be hosting your Postgres database within the thing that you're using. So we'll leave everything as default. Things that you should consider is obviously changing the password here instead of using the default password. In case anyone did get into your network, you wouldn't want them to know your password is Postgres. As well as down here, if you change it up there, the initial user and email and password, I'm going to leave as default, but you want to update those as well. So what I'll do here is update this to 8080. And then I'm going to disable the LDAP stuff because we aren't going to do LDAP in this video. But it does support LDAP. So if you have an Active Directory or whatnot, it will be very useful for not having to manage another set of usernames and passwords. So we'll comment that out for now. And then we'll just do a Docker Compose up and - detach so that it will run in the background here. So it'll pull the Kviklet, the Kviklet Postgres for the database that runs behind the actual application. And the thing to note here is, let's take a look real quick at the Docker Compose. The Postgres service will be running on the default 5432 when we connect to this for the fun of it. So we can see that everything is up and running. We're running 8080 on here. So we should now be able to do https kviklet.dragon.local. You should be able to sign in with the email, which was back in the Docker Compose, where based off the initial email and password, unless you changed it. So it would be admin@admin.com, and admin would be the username. So you get a very, simple GUI, nothing too fancy. So what we'll do here, because we'll need to kind of show it a little bit. So we need to go to settings and users. So let's add a user. So dev1. We'll just name the password as dev1. Unexpected token value. Maybe I can't use developer. Okay, so apparently you can't use numbers. Okay, that's good to know. So in this case, there's some default roles. So we'll have this developer be developer, and we'll have admin's admin. So here we go. So we can connect our databases. So let's add a connection. It will be a Postgres database. Let's name it, Postgres production. and Postgres. It's hosted on itself, so we'll just do that. And then the data name was also Postgres. And this is all this information that was in the doc file at the top, where it sets up a default Postgres on 5432. So we can test connection, sees that it was a success, and we'll create a connection. Okay, so with that, we'll kind of split the screen and we'll have an incognito on one side. We'll log in as the developer user. You gotta type the whole link. So developer, switch to doc theme. Okay, so what we can do here is essentially we can create a request. There's two types of requests. We can query, just have a query, or we can have an access. Access will grant essentially a full session. You can run as many commands as you want. I'll show you both actually though. So let's start with the first one. So we'll go with create new request. We'll just do a query. So create a table for accounts. Create table for accounts. And our SQL will essentially be, and I have it already pre-created here, should be this. Well, we'll create a table for accounts with these parameters, just by default, nothing too fancy. So you can see here that we got create a table for accounts. It's a single thing. As the developer user, though, you can only leave a comment. You can't prove yourself because that would defeat the purpose. But in here on the admin side, you can see that we created one. We can approve, request, or change. So let's say we approve. Request approved. And hit review. It will say this invalid server response, but if you actually refresh the page, it'll actually show that it was approved. I think the invalid server response was due to maybe connecting to like an external thing, like Teams or Slack. But that's okay. So it's approved. So if we refresh on this side now, we can see that we have the option to now run query, as before it was blacked out. So we can run the query, and we can see that 0 rows were updated, and that's pretty much it because there really wasn't anything created. So you can see now if we refresh, we executed this and it gave you the result, which is cool. If you try to click run query again, it would say it's already been executed, so you can only execute it configured the amount of times. So you can only run a query once, which makes sense. So essentially this request is successful. So you can see it's executed, single execution, nothing too fancy. So now you can also do access requests, where essentially I need full access to query, stuff, right? So you can submit that request. So you can see it's pending here, nothing I can do about it. So we'll go to our admin account, we can click here, and we can see, okay, so approved. And we'll hit review. Again, you can just refresh the page and you can see it's approved. So you can see how it's grayed out here to start session. So you can see now it's enabled, so we can click start session. So from accounts, so like for example, you can run queries from accounts. You can pretty much, this is just a console that you can pretty much do anything you want within the realm of the database. So you pretty much have kind of like full access. So this is like, obviously be very careful what you do if this is production. But usually if you're just running select statements, but you can run where user ID equals, and I don't do database stuff, and I think that should, yeah, so this will fail and stuff like that. So obviously that isn't valid. But if you go back to request, you can see this is active. So this is active until someone rejects it. So right now, you can see the full history. So I ran this command, and it actually shows you what I did step by step. So you got full documentation of what happened, who did what. But when you want to disable access, you actually have to reject the request. So this will always be on until you reject the request. So there's no timing or whatnot. So you should be done now. So if I do that, refresh the page again, admin user rejected, and I refresh the page, this is blacked out now. So it would be cool to do like a timer thing or something, so that you don't accidentally go like, oh, I just left that and now this developer has full production access for forever. It's probably a good feature request, but I mean, for what it does, it's pretty cool. I do like the single execution and just being able to go like, oh, okay, here we go, this is what we got, right? So definitely, if you want to try to streamline or give access, to a developer real quick to, run a select statement or something, and you can see, what they want, and you can approve it real quick. It's pretty cool. So, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.